16 by 9, the bigger picture.
A cold case more than 30 years old. 7 Canadians killed in a hotel arson in upstate New York. Will justice ever be served?
I've never seen that magnitude of death before.
When I got there, the building was pretty much engulfed in flames.
It was a real emotional shock because I had assumed we had saved these people.
That's all coming up on 16 by 9. Here's Mary Garofalo.
Good evening and welcome to 16 by 9, the bigger picture. It was a deadly and mysterious blaze that killed 7 Canadians at a Holiday Inn in upstate New York 32 years ago. At the time, fire officials called it an arson, but the criminal responsible was never caught. Tonight, in a 16 by 9 exclusive, our Anthony Robart digs through the ashes to reignite a case gone cold.
I think all they could see was them dying, and their screaming was a way to get attention.
It did strike us that all of a sudden you've got this massive fire. And as a general rule, with fires, they don't usually move that quick.
November 26, 1978. An inferno engulfs a Holiday Inn hotel in upstate New York.
We'd never seen that magnitude of death before.
The voice of an off-duty firefighter, Lieutenant Harold Phillips, came in over the scanner. Tom Knowles, a volunteer fireman, heard the call.
I was up in my bedroom sleeping when the alert tone went off. At the time, to be honest with you, I thought, I don't know if I was dreaming or what, but I thought it was not a real fire. I thought it was a drill. When I pulled up to the scene, I could hear in the background windows breaking. I could hear people screaming.
Every town has a defining moment. For Greece, New York, this was it. Gerald Phelan, the police chief at the time, was called to the scene.
The sky was lit up, it was bright. And I knew then we had a very major fire going on. And then, of course, as I got closer, I could see the flames shooting up. And when I got there, the building was pretty much engulfed in flames.
The hotel was full, nearly 200 guests staying the night.
I started in the door. I was the first one in. I had the light and the rescue tool. And as I walked towards the smoke, I got about 10 feet in, and I ran into my first victim. It was a young lady. She was laying face up, dark hair, good looking. I could almost draw her picture. I looked around, and beside her was another woman, an older woman. And as I shined my light around and felt around, I found at least one more.
The flames traveled fast, up the stairwell and through the roof of the building.
One of my detectives, he said, this thing seems to be starting too fast, moving too fast. And I said, yeah, I agree with you. Now, that was probably our first inkling of a suspicious fire.
If you see the way the fire traveled, and it went up the stairs and to the south and then to the east, it's perfect. And that's why I called it a perfect fire.
A perfect fire, engulfing a building and lives with it. Tom made it out of the building carrying a woman in his arms.
By that time, there were other rescuers coming. They took these people from us and helped us carry them down the stairway and immediately began doing CPR.
But Tom knew his job wasn't finished. He headed back into the flames.
I looked, and the people were starting to cover the victims up. It was a real emotional shock because I had assumed we had saved these people.
Some of the guests heard the fire alarm. Many others had said they did not. Making matters worse, the hotel had no sprinkler system, which was not required back then. For those who made it out into the cold, dark, early morning hours, had little but the clothes they went to bed in. And they were the lucky ones. Those lucky ones were loaded onto buses and waited for news of loved ones still inside. In shock, they recounted their struggle to survive.
And I opened the hall door. There was nothing but black smoke. I lost my voice now, I can't even talk. Nothing but black smoke. And we just shut the door right fast and we smashed the window and get out.
But not everyone got out. The blaze claimed 10 lives, 7 of them Canadian. All died of smoke inhalation. Chief Phelan set up a temporary morgue in the parking lot.
This was about as close as you probably could be to being a combat area. It was very tragic. There's some things that happen to you in life that you just are never going to put out of your mind. You just aren't. And that was one of them.
The new day broke to reveal burnt remnants of the hotel. Firemen still searching through the rubble for bodies. Miles away in Brampton, Ontario, the 3 Sundu children, Brian, Tracy, and Stephanie, were waiting for their mother to come home. Huguette Sundu, along with their grandmother and aunt, had gone to Greece to shop at the local mall.
It was Sunday afternoon, late afternoon, and we were all gathering, getting our coats on and getting ready to go and drive downtown Toronto to pick up our mother.
Then the phone rang, and their father got the terrible news. All 3 women were dead.
I went into my dad's bedroom with him, and he told me what happened. And it was devastating. It was just like a bomb went off, and my world collapsed. And then we cried for a while, and then my dad went downstairs and told my sisters what had happened.
Death never ever came to my mind. When he finally said that she passed away, I remember Stephanie just breaking out in tears.
I had my first loose tooth, and I lost that tooth during that weekend, and I held on to it because I couldn't wait to show my mother that I had lost my first tooth. So I ended up putting that tooth in her, I believe I actually put it in her coffin.
Coming up on 16 by 9.
It is the unanimous conclusion of these investigators that the cause of the fire was arson. I'd like to catch the fellow who did it.
That's all coming up. Welcome back to 16 by 9, the bigger picture.
It was the worst inferno Greece, New York had ever seen. Investigators searched for answers with no luck until 16 by 9 started asking questions. Once again, here's our Anthony Robart.
As soon as the Holiday Inn blaze was out, the search for the cause began. 10 people were dead, 34 injured, and officials were looking for answers.
Arson investigator Mike Vannegrossi did not rule out arson as a possible cause of the hotel fire.
Well, right now we're trying to figure out the cause. We've figured out the point of origin, and
Which is where?
well, the point of origin was in the basement area.
Any idea how it spread so rapidly?
It was the question on everyone's mind. New York Fire Marshal John Stickevers, one of the top arson experts in New York City, a hotshot, was brought in to investigate.
I was at home and I was watching TV, the news on TV, and I saw it. And they were interviewing an individual, a firefighter, who discovered the fire.
When I first arrived, I saw flames coming out the west side of the building.
He also attempted rescues while he was there. My boss told me that I have been chosen to go up there.
But once he got there, getting to the bottom of what happened wasn't going to be easy. Debris and about 6 inches of water covered the floor.
When I cleared everything out, I determined that a flammable liquid had been poured mainly in the stairwell area in front of the closet, and liquid had been poured into the closet itself.
A flammable liquid deliberately poured at the scene. And then Stickevers found something else. on the base of the door.
2 separate spots on the kick plate where the metal of the kick plate itself had melted and flowed, which indicated, because it was aluminum, that the temperature at the floor level at least those 2 points was at least 1200 degrees. That is in total opposition to what normal fires are. Normal fires are down at the floor level, it may get as high as 400 degrees.
For this expert, the scene added up to just one thing: arson. Greece Police Chief Gerald Phelan called a press conference.
It is the unanimous conclusion of these investigators that the cause of the fire at the Holiday Inn was arson, that the fire that occurred in that structure was a set fire.
The hotel was now a crime scene.
I'd like to catch the fellow who did it.
And the Greece, New York police were investigating a homicide.
10 innocent lives were erased. And so there has to be a legal and moral obligation to do the best effort you can. And is that a heavy weight? It's a very heavy weight.
That obligation started with an investigation from the floor up.
The fire investigator that originally looked at the fire scene, he declared the fire to be an accident.
But Stick Evers says he knew better. He could read evidence in burn patterns on the floor. Burn patterns, he says, the first investigator hadn't seen.
One can never really tell what happens at a fire scene until one cleans the entire floor off.
And when Stick Evers cleaned the floor, another tale emerged about the flammable substance used to start the fire.
I know the areas were tested by the laboratory, and to the best of my recollection, they came back with MEK, methyl ethyl ketone.
Assistant District Attorney Joel Crane was on the case, trying to piece together the evidence.
The normal person would use gasoline or kerosene or benzene or something that was readily accessible at a hardware store or a gasoline station.
And that would show a trace?
That would show a trace.
But MEK would not?
MEK would not.
Experts agree someone using MEK likely had to know a thing or two about starting fires. Stick Evers and Police Chief Gerald Phelan had no doubt. This was arson.
The DA, the profiler, Stick Evers, myself, my investigators, all through the process were in agreement. There are some times where disputes arise in investigations. In this case, that did not arise.
They agreed it was arson and agreed on something else. That one person of interest stood out from the rest.
I think he was a suspect from the get-go. I saw him on TV. And when he was being interviewed on TV, there was something that he was holding back or hiding or whatever.
But it wasn't just the way the man acted. It was what he said that had Stick Evers suspicious.
I was told that he was driving down the road and he saw the fire and drove into the back of the structure and called the fire in on his department radio. It was suspicious because I think it was impossible to see the fire.
You know, he was the first to see the fire, and there was a theory that he couldn't see what he said he saw.
You can't see the fire, so you must have other knowledge about it, like you said it.
And before long, Stick Evers had a theory about who set that fire.
The chief suspect in this fire was a firefighter, was a paid firefighter in the town of Greece, and he was also the individual who reported the fire.
Coming up on 16 by 9.
If a crime is committed, and I don't care who commits the crime, we are going. We are going.
That's all coming up. Welcome back to 16 by 9, the bigger picture.
Time can't heal all wounds. For the Sundew kids, losing their mother left a scar that'll never go away. They're still looking for answers. And thanks to 16 by 9's investigation, they might be closer than ever. Here again is our Anthony Robart.
It was the most heinous crime Greece, New York had ever seen. 10 lives were lost in the flames. 33-year-old Huguette Sundu was one of the victims. The mother of 3 died of smoke inhalation. Brian Sundu is her oldest child.
This was a crime. I mean, to grow up as a young man thinking that, knowing that your mother was murdered, that your grandmother was essentially murdered, that's a lot to bear.
Investigators ruled it arson, but no one was charged. And while the case stayed open, the trail went cold. But decades later, the question of guilt, who set the fire, stayed alive in the hearts and minds of these 3.
To think that, as this has been 33 years almost, and that nothing has been done about this crime, I don't understand.
It wouldn't restore things, but yeah, I think it would help. It would help to have some answers.
16 by 9 went in search of those answers, starting here at the police station in Greece, New York. Todd Baxter is the current police chief.
Time has gone by. Has there been mistakes made over 30 years? I've yet to find a perfect criminal.
Do we have any suspects at this point?
There were definitely people of interest. There were 1 or 2 that were named in the investigation, and again, for the same reason the detective mentioned, I'd rather not pinpoint those people, but some of these people are still of interest today that we're going to go back and take another shot at and take another look at, and we'd be foolish if we didn't.
We spoke to the New York Chief Fire Marshal, John Stekivers. Now, he told us that the primary suspect was the person who reported the fire. Did the police investigation find the same thing?
He was one of the people of interest during the preliminary investigation, absolutely.
We've learned that the name Harold Phillips was the individual who reported the fire.
That's correct.
Is this a person you were looking at today then?
This is Mr. Phillips, and a lot of other people are people that we're going to talk to again.
I mean, Mr. Phillips isn't just an average citizen.
Correct.
He is the chief of the fire department.
Correct.
This is the man he is talking about. Harold Phillips, the firefighter who called in the Holiday Inn blaze. Today, he is the chief of the Grease Ridge Fire Department. It was just after 2:30 a.m. on November 26, 1978. Lieutenant Harold Phillips was driving on Ridge Road past the Holiday Inn when he called in the fire on his department radio. But exactly how he saw the fire didn't quite square up for police.
It was everything that he told the police as to what his actions were in the discovery and reporting of that fire that made them believe he was a suspect.
John Stickevers was suspicious of Phillips for another reason.
I believe he knew that building because he used to examine it or inspect it.
Only weeks earlier, Phillips inspected the hotel.
You inspected it, what'd you find then? Very minor violations, so nothing that would go any further in our yearly inspection.
According to this fire department inspection report obtained by 16 by 9, Phillips noted only a few minor infractions. Then we found a second, amended report identical to the first, except for this: an added comment recommending the hotel hook up its fire alarm to the fire department.
If there were 2 different reports done, that would be unusual. Absolutely, that'd be something that we key in on. That's definitely something we'll take a look at. Not only will we take a look at it today, but why was it taken a look at before, and did it throw up red flags?
But the amended inspection report isn't the only red flag. According to Joel Crane, several fire safety issues were not noted in the inspection.
From what they told me, he was pretty exacting, precise, that he wouldn't miss these things.
Crane was the assistant DA at the time. He remembers what police told him about a possible motive.
He was going to show that by starting a small fire, not intending it to get out of control like that, but by doing that and being around first there and putting it out, he was going to show how all these code violations contributed to the non-safety, if you will, of the building.
Crane says Harold Phillips was interviewed and given a polygraph test.
Their conclusion was that he had flunked the test. My experience with polygraphs, it's not scientifically reliable. They're not evidence in a criminal trial. You can't use it. In our opinion, based on the proof that they showed us, all the materials, there was not enough proof to show reasonable cause to believe that someone had committed a felony.
When you go to trial, you must prove beyond the shadow of any doubt that this person did this. And with arson, because they normally operate alone, it's difficult. You know, you don't want to go into a case like that with just a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Arson is the most difficult crime to prove, but it really wasn't so much the crime that was difficult to prove, it was who did it.
Police didn't have an eyewitness or a confession, but decades after the fire, questions remain about one man. 16 by 9 wanted to ask that man what he knew about events on the night of November 26, 1978. Chief Harold Phillips turned down our request for an interview. Chief Phillips? We caught up with him in this parking lot.
Sir.
Anthony Robart with Global TV 16 by 9 from Toronto, Canada.
Yep.
Were you the one who reported the fire?
Yes.
You were?
Yep.
A few weeks prior to the fire, you inspected the hotel.
Yep.
And you gave it the all clear.
No, the inspection report was done consistent with the way we inspected at the time. We did familiarization inspections. We didn't do code enforcement inspections.
And what did you find at the time?
That was 1978, and I don't recall what I found at the time.
But we have an email that says that you were calling it an accident, yet the official record says it is an arson. Why the discrepancy?
That's the reason we haven't talked about it since 78. We disagree with the findings of the police department from 78.
Why does the chief of the fire department have a different opinion?
Actually, I'm not going to make any comment on it. But I have that feeling, and that's the feeling I've had since 1978.
Sir, were you involved in any way in this fire?
Absolutely not.
You understand there are a lot of questions surrounding this?
Yep, and I'm done talking about it.
Sir, did you start that fire?
No, I did not start the fire.
We didn't get any answers from Chief Phillips, but 16 by 9's visit to Greece, New York did stir up renewed interest in a case gone cold. Greece's new chief of police, Todd Baxter, says he's taking the case square on, no matter who he has to question.
I can categorically say it makes no difference to Todd Baxter. It makes absolutely no difference. I'm new to this town. I have no political affiliations. I have no... If a crime is committed, and I don't care who commits the crime, we are going. We are going.
32 years after Huguette Sundu died, her children hope they are one step closer to finding out who killed their mother.
We weren't the only ones affected here. There were people who lost their lives, hundreds of firefighters who responded and who carry scars of this fire to this day. There's a lot of people who deserve answers.
And that's it for us tonight. If you have a story idea, just call us at 1-877-TEL-169 or visit our website at global16by9.com. I'm Mary Garofalo. Thank you for watching. And from all of us here, good night.
If you've got a story idea for 16 by 9, call our tip line. "16 by 9, the bigger picture."
A cold case more than 30 years old. 7 Canadians killed in a hotel arson in upstate New York. Will justice ever be served?
I've never seen that magnitude of death before.
When I got there, the building was pretty much engulfed in flames.
It was a real emotional shock because I had assumed we had saved these people.
That's all coming up on 16 by 9. Here's Mary Garofalo.
Good evening.
It was a way to get attention.
It did strike us that all of a sudden you've got this massive fire. And as a general rule, with fires, they don't usually move that quick.
November 26, 1978. An inferno engulfs a Holiday Inn hotel in upstate New York.
We'd never seen that magnitude of death before.
The voice of an off-duty firefighter, Lieutenant Harold Phillips, came in over the scanner. Tom Knowles, a volunteer fireman, heard the call.
I was up in my bedroom sleeping when the alert tone went off. It's a time, to be honest with you, I thought...
And when I got there, the building was pretty much engulfed in flames.
The hotel was full, nearly 200 guests staying the night.
I started in the door. I was the first one in. I had the light and the rescue tool. And as I walked towards the smoke, I got about 10 feet in, and I ran into my first victim. It was a young lady. She was laying face up, dark hair, good looking.
Good evening and welcome to 16 by 9, The Bigger Picture. It was a deadly and mysterious blaze that killed 7 Canadians at a Holiday Inn in upstate New York 32 years ago. At the time, fire officials called it an arson, but the criminal responsible was never caught. Tonight, in a 16 by 9 exclusive, our Anthony Robart digs through the ashes to reignite a case gone cold.
I think all they could see was them dying, and they're screaming. I don't know if I was dreaming or what, but I thought it was not a real fire. I thought it was a drill. When I pulled up to the scene, I could hear in the background windows breaking. I could hear people screaming.
Every town has a defining moment. For Greece, New York, this was it. Gerald Phelan, the police chief at the time, was called to the scene.
The sky was lit up, it was bright. And I knew then we had a very major fire going on. And then, of course, as I got closer, I could see the flames shooting up.